Let's break down tariffs. Think of them as a tax on imports, like a cover charge for foreign goods. Under the Trump administration, the US slapped a massive 50% tariff on a wide range of Indian products. Why? It's all about India buying discounted oil from Russia, which the US sees as undermining sanctions against Russia for its war in Ukraine. The logic: every barrel India buys helps fund Russia's military, so the US is using its economic muscle to pressure India to stop. Vice President J.D. Vance confirmed the goal is to choke off Russia's oil profits. The US hopes that making Indian exports too expensive will force India to rethink its energy deals. It's a high-stakes gamble, straining ties between two major democracies. This isn't a one-off. Brazil is facing similar tariffs, showing a broader America-first approach. The US is shifting from complex negotiations to blunt economic penalties to get its way. For India, this is more than a policy dispute. It's a direct hit to its economy. The message: play by US rules or pay the price. These tariffs are not just numbers, they're economic hand grenades with global fallout. The world is watching to see who blinks first. The stakes: billions in trade, millions of jobs, and the future of US-India relations. The tariff escalation was lightning fast. In early August 2025, President Trump announced plans to double tariffs on Indian goods. By August 7th, a 25% tariff hit, shocking industries on both sides. Just weeks later, the rate doubled to 50%, leaving businesses no time to adapt. The reason? India's continued oil trade with Russia, which made up over a third of its imports in 2024. The US saw this as a direct challenge to its foreign policy and responded with swift, punishing tariffs. This wasn't a gradual nudge, it was a sudden shock meant to disrupt and punish. The message: keep buying Russian oil, and you'll pay dearly. Supply chains years in the making were thrown into chaos in weeks. The result: a high-stakes standoff with global consequences. The US is India's biggest export market, over $87 billion in goods sold in 2024. Now $48 billion of those exports are directly threatened by the new tariffs. For Indian businesses, especially small and medium enterprises, this is a crisis. Products that were profitable yesterday are suddenly too expensive for American buyers. Factories slow down, orders dry up, and layoffs loom. Trade experts predict Indian exports to the US could collapse, dropping below $50 billion by 2026. The pain is sharpest for SMEs, the backbone of India's export economy. For many, a 50% tariff isn't a hurdle, it's a knockout punch. Job losses could be massive, especially in regions dependent on exports like textiles and seafood. This isn't just about numbers, it's about millions of livelihoods at risk. The tariffs threaten to undo years of economic progress. For India, the stakes couldn't be higher. Which products are hit hardest? Textiles, apparel, and jewelry, industries where India is a global leader. Over 35% of their exports go to the US, so a 50% tariff is devastating. The gem and jewelry sector alone could see 175,000 jobs at risk. Shrimp farmers, already struggling, now face financial ruin as the tariff doubles. Everyday items, spices, basmati rice, tea, are all on the list, threatening millions of farmers and fishermen. Traditional industries like handmade carpets, centered in towns like Bhadohi and Srinagar, face extinction as their products become unaffordable. Not everything is targeted though. Pharmaceuticals and electronics are exempt since the US relies on India for generics and smartphones. The administration is picking its battles, targeting goods with alternative suppliers while sparing sectors critical to the US. For many Indian communities, these tariffs threaten not just jobs, but cultural traditions. The impact is personal, not just economic. The US is sending a message, but the collateral damage is immense. For India's export sectors, the future is suddenly uncertain. The ripple effects will be felt for years. Here's the catch: American consumers are footing much of the bill. Tariffs are paid by US importers who pass the cost to you. That means higher prices for basmati rice, spices, shrimp, clothing, and more. A $100 rug from India now costs $150, and that extra $50 comes out of your pocket. Businesses face a tough choice: absorb the cost or raise prices and risk losing customers. Most will raise prices, fueling inflation. The policy meant to punish India ends up making life more expensive for Americans. Small shops and big retailers alike are squeezed. Even your local Indian grocery store will have to explain why everything costs more. Tariffs are a blunt tool. They hit everyone, not just the intended target. The economic pain is shared on both sides of the ocean. When Indian goods get too pricey, US buyers look elsewhere. Importers are scrambling for new suppliers: Ecuador, Indonesia, and Vietnam for shrimp, Pakistan for basmati rice, Kenya and Sri Lanka for tea. These countries are eager to fill the gap, and new supply chains are forming fast. Once business moves, it's hard to win it back. Even in high-value sectors like jewelry and apparel, buyers are shifting to Israel, Belgium, Vietnam, and Bangladesh. Bangladesh, for example, just negotiated lower tariffs, making it a top choice for US clothing brands. This global game of musical chairs leaves India out in the cold. The disruption is costly for American companies too. Vetting new suppliers and logistics isn't cheap. The ripple effects are global, rewarding some countries and punishing others. The US may isolate India, but it also creates instability for everyone. The world's supply chains are being rewritten in real time. The fallout will last long after the tariffs. India isn't backing down. Officials call the tariffs unfair and see them as economic coercion, not legitimate trade policy. Prime Minister Modi has drawn a line, refusing to change foreign policy under pressure, especially on energy security for 1.4 billion people. The US has long pushed India to open its markets, but this fight has only hardened India's resolve. India argues its Russia relationship is about national interest and affordable energy, not politics. They point out that even some European countries still buy Russian energy. India feels unfairly singled out and is pushing back against what it sees as a double standard. This standoff is about more than trade, it's about sovereignty and India's rising global confidence. As the world's largest democracy, India is signaling it won't be bullied. The government is betting its economy can weather the storm. India believes the US needs it as a strategic partner more than it needs to win this fight. The relationship is being tested like never before. For both countries, the outcome will shape their roles on the world stage. The world is watching to see who blinks first. Economists warn these tariffs are a strategic shock with global consequences. India risks being erased from key US markets and losing its place in global supply chains. The move fuels a trend toward protectionism and economic fragmentation, breaking the world into rival blocs. When the US targets a partner like India, it sends a message. Alliances are secondary to economic demands. This erodes trust and makes cooperation on big issues like climate or security much harder. There's also the risk of escalation. The US is already eyeing tariffs on pharmaceuticals and electronics. Uncertainty hangs over the entire trade relationship, making it hard for businesses to plan. The result: disruption, instability, and a fundamental reshaping of global trade. India faces job losses and slower growth. Americans face higher prices and supply headaches. The world is moving from cooperation to confrontation in trade. Economic weapons are now tools of foreign policy. The effects of this shift will be felt for years. The global order is being rewritten, one tariff at a time.